The Nigerian Air Force was established by an Act of Parliament in April 1964, primarily tasked, among other roles, to defend the airspace over Nigeria, a role crucial to socio-political stability of the nation and economic well-being of her people. To effectively carry out these assigned statutory roles, the Nigerian Air Force was equipped with different platforms and equipment. Air power is no doubt crucial in the modern warfare. So, for a functional and efficient Air Force, human capacity development through robust and result-oriented training for enhanced professional performance is one of the key drivers of the current administration of the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar. With his vision to reposition the Nigerian Air Force into a highly professional and disciplined force through capacity building initiative for effective, efficient and timely employment of air power in response to Nigeria's national security imperatives, has embarked on training and retraining of her personnel in specific and new areas to meet the current and emerging security challenges and service needs. Since the assumption of office as the 20th Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar has expressed commitment in upgrading, reforming and building new facilities at the Nigerian Air Force training commands and centers, expansion and introduction of new units with trainings in view of the emerging security challenges.
In every organization, when it comes to productivity, the human being is the most important. And that is why whatever we are doing in terms of reactivation of airplanes, providing for the needs of units and so on, we must focus on the human being, because the human being, like I said, is the most important asset of any organization. But that human being must have quality. If you are to really be effective, the human being must have quality, and that is where capacity development comes in. Human being is important, but that human being must be given what he or she requires to be effective in the discharge of his or her responsibility. And that is why when we evaluated the system in 2015, we realized that the issue of capacity development should be foremost in what we are doing. And we've been able to do so much in terms of capacity development in the last 2 years. A human being that has capacity, you find that is not only effective, but is equally efficient. Rather than going several times to drop bombs, someone that has the capacity can simply go there, one pass, and then he's able to deliver on the target. And that is why we feel that we need to really capitalize or put a lot of attention to capacity development, not only for pilots, but even for technicians. For the pilot to fly, the technicians have to service the aircraft and make sure that the aircraft is in a status that will make the pilot to be effective in the discharge of his responsibilities. So capacity development for us is something that affects every specialty in the Air Force. We have also dedicated a lot of resources in training our admin officers, and we have also been able to build capacity in base defense, because even when you reactivate aircraft and you have trained pilots, trained technicians, the bases must be secured, for us to really be able to discharge our responsibilities. So if you look at the totality of everything we do, capacity building is very central to the success of what we are trying to achieve.
With this clear-cut vision and key drivers of the Chief of the Air Staff, the events that followed are the Nigerian Air Force leadership determination to deliver on her mandate of securing the Nigerian airspace and other security needs. The regular and advanced training of pilots, engineers and technicians has reinforced the combat capability of the Nigerian Air Force that has decimated the capability of the Boko Haram terrorists to freely operate and other successful intervention in the past 2 years of the current leadership. Nigerian Air Force, as the name implies, secures the nation's airspace and provide air support to the military. The training and retraining of pilots in different fields of air operation is key to positioning the force on the right path of success. The Training Command (TC) hitherto was in charge of all trainings in the Nigerian Air Force, has been unbundled into Air Training Command (ATC) and Ground Training Command (GTC).
In the inception of the Air Force, a command was sufficient based on the manpower requirement and also the task of the Air Force as at that time. But as we are aware, the role of the Air Force is expanding. Now, the task of Training Command became enormous, especially as regards conduct of flying training and other related courses that has to do with operations and flying, and also ground training. And the expansion also of the intake of the ground personnel and also other specialist training that has to do with ground personnel. The span of control became very, very wide for one command to be able to handle. Therefore, the need for the unbundling. The unbundling has created a situation where two air officers commanding will be able to monitor and concentrate on training as regards to either flying training or ground training.
Air Training Command has under its command the 401 Flying Training School and 403 Flying Training School. In partnership, the Nigerian Air Force trains her pilots at the International Helicopter Flying School in Enugu. Also, sends pilots to other flying schools within and outside the country. The 401 Flying Training School, Kaduna, has witnessed capacity in infrastructure development and other provisions.
Let me pick this infrastructure development one after the other, beginning with the extension and resurfacing of the runway. Before now, the runway surface was bad, particularly threshold 2-3. There was a portion that was particularly bad that we had to teach students to learn after the bad spot. And that has reduced the length of the runway available. And of course, coupled with the risk of having a student to blow off the tire. So with the resurfacing of the runway, you now have a smoother runway and you have the full length. In fact, it has been increased. So you now have a situation where an instructor pilot could make at least 3 landings to show landing perspective and round up for student pilots. Before now, there was no taxiway. What we had was a holding point where aircraft departing for training will hold and wait for the active runway to be cleared before they enter either to backtrack or take off for training. But with the construction of the taxiway, you now have a situation where an aircraft landing can exit the active runway area to enable other airplanes join the runway for departure. And that has helped us to reduce our turnaround time and be able to get more sorties in a day. The aircraft shelters that were constructed to provide shelter for the aircraft blocked the view of the air traffic controller because of the height of the control tower. And so it became necessary to increase the height. With the increase in the height, the controller is able to have the complete view of the runway thresholds and be able to see an aircraft coming to land. So that has increased our safety margin greatly. Additional mandate to accommodate more student pilots occasioned by the need of pilots in the field, it became necessary to expand some of the existing facilities that we have, particularly in the area of classrooms. Hitherto, we had about 3 classrooms that can accommodate 90 students. Now, with the increasing number, the headquarters Nigerian Air Force built an additional block of 3 classrooms that can accommodate additional 90 student pilots.
A 25 unit of accommodation is provided for both Nigerian instructors and Pakistan instructors who have come to build capacity on the Super Mushak. 120 units of accommodation is also provided for student pilots. The result of the provision by the headquarters Nigerian Air Force are evident, as the 401 Flying Training School has graduated her first female pilot and set a number of records that the Nigerian Air Force leadership is proud of.
Basically, with respect to flying, we have seen much of the flying training has been localized, even though there was realization that we need to have as many pilots as possible now. So naturally, some of the training has also been outsourced to some companies and countries outside Nigeria. But we have seen an increasing enhancement of the capacity in Nigeria to provide that training. And one of the outputs of that was a recent feat that was recorded in Kaduna, where we had 16 cadets, Air Force cadets of the Nigerian Defense Academy passing out after completing their ab initio flying training. That's the first time in the past 30 years that cadets will complete their initial flying training while still being cadets at the Nigerian Defense Academy. The good thing about it is that we also had 2 females as part of these 16 cadets. The implication is that we'll be having regular combatant officers, females, who have also the potentials of becoming fighter pilots, which would be a first in Nigeria. And another thing that was particularly gratifying in that particular training was the fact that everything was done within 4 months. It's another feat.
The winner of this award for Student Pilot Course for Alpha is Bravo 201, Cadet Kevin Sani. No wonder she wants to be a fighter instructor.
The Super Mushak is a new fleet of trainer aircraft inducted in 401 Flying School, Kaduna. A hangar was renovated and furnished to house the fleet, where maintenance activities are carried out. The Super Mushak has unique capabilities.
The Diamond itself is a primary trainer, but more of a civil primary trainer, whereas the Super Mushak is a purely military trainer, in the sense that with the Super Mushak, we can conduct full range of military training, which includes aerobatics, whereas in Diamond, we do not conduct aerobatic training on that one. The students have to go to Kano and be given extra courses on aerobatics to catch up with what they have missed in Kaduna. But now with Super Mushak, all those things will be erased.
Before the induction of the Super Mushak trainer aircraft into the Nigerian Air Force 401 Flying Training School, instructors had undergone conversion training and today are already training cadets. The Nigerian Air Force instructor pilots graduated after completing the conversion training on the Super Mushak aircraft and has since trained pilots who were winged in Kaduna. The Pakistani Air Force Chief of the Air Staff was the special guest at the event. The 403 Flying Training School in Kano offers advanced and combat pilot training. In the same drive to make learning efficient, the Nigerian Air Force leadership has provided new facilities in the school.
The assumption of office of the present Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal S.B. Abubakar, has ushered a new era of infrastructural development in 403 Flying Training School. Upon approaching the main gate, we have a new gate which has given a new outlook and creates a better impression of a professional flying training school to the public. In areas of flying training, the basic flying training wing as well as the instructor pilot training wing have all been renovated. The briefing rooms have been furnished. The classrooms and other training facilities which we have all been provided, and this has created a conducive learning environment within the flying training block. The technicians also have a new flight line house and well furnished to make them comfortable, and this is a place where they go to relax after a day's activity, so they are very, very comfortable. Now, in areas of accommodation and in anticipation of the large number of student pilots which we currently have 18 of them. The student pilots quarters, which are 20 units of single bedroom apartments, have been renovated and furnished to taste. They've also provided dining facilities. In areas of maintenance, we have a new avionics workshop which has been constructed and equipped with test benches and other equipment which are vital to maintain the L39 fleet. And so far our serviceability status has increased drastically.
The International Helicopter Training School and Nigerian Air Force Combat Helicopter Training School are meeting the demand for combat pilots in the Nigerian Air Force. Much attention has been given to the facilities and platforms for ease of training.
In the last 2 years, the International Helicopter Flying School has trained 25 helicopter pilots for the Nigerian Air Force. And these pilots have been deployed nationwide. Some of them are serving in the Northeast, some of them are serving in the 115 Special Operations Group in Port Harcourt in support of operations in the Niger Delta. In line with one of the key drivers of the Chief of the Air Staff vision, which is human capacity development, the school has been re-equipped and re-rolled to provide adequate and advanced helicopter pilot training for pilots who are aspiring to become combat helicopter pilots in the Nigerian Air Force. The Chief of the Air Staff has provided a new building which is adequately furnished. The classrooms have been re-equipped and restocked. The library has been restocked as well. The ops room has been re-equipped. And then plans are ongoing to procure 2 new additional training helicopters to provide adequate training in the shortest possible time.
Ready for takeoff. Left is clear.
Right, is clear, sir.
Okay. So for takeoff checks, we also caution our lights are out, engine auto repair mass stable at 100%, engine gear out in green 4 will have sufficient 4.
To avoid fatigue on the pilots, engineers and technicians, in the past 2 years, a great number of Nigerian Air Force officers have undergone training and more are undergoing flying training to support the manpower requirement. Presently, 10 personnel are being trained at the International Aviation College in Ilorin.
Our welfare towards this training has been at its best. We can't get it any better anywhere from the Air Force. All our needs, equipment, financially, emotionally, has been met by the Nigerian Air Force, our sponsor. And as such, at this moment, I can confidently say we have no need whatsoever that hasn't been met. We are grateful, I can speak for myself and the 9 of us, that we are grateful for this rare opportunity given to us to serve our nation in this capacity. We have been exposed to standards that can be matched to any training institution all over the world. And we know there is nothing the Air Force and the Nigerian nation demands from us but our very best.
I believe Nigerian Air Force has a stake in this college. As how? Because the way the Air Force believed in us, patronized us, has kept this college rolling and brought this college to the international limelight, particularly in sponsoring Air Force officers to do training as commercial pilot for their transport unit, particularly with the leadership of the current Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abakar. We couldn't be best. I believe in him. We believe in the way he's doing in the Air Force, training. I'm a training person. As an instructor background, we believe in training, and I can see in every sector in the Air Force, we hear they are training this, they are acquiring this for the Air Force. I think Air Force, with the kind of Chief of Staff we have now, is at its best.
Several Nigerian Air Force personnel have undergone foreign trainings, and some are still ongoing.
The present Chief of Air Staff has done a lot when it comes to training. You know, one of his key vision is this discipline and a highly professional force, which you know that it is only by training that you can become very professional.
In the past 2 years, over 963 courses, both local and foreign, have been conducted, and some are still ongoing. As part of effort to enhance its operational readiness, the Nigerian Air Force on the 13th of June 2017 inducted a new set of 10 young pilots who had completed their flying training courses at Wasteland Aviation in South Africa. In furtherance of the human capacity building initiative of the present leadership of the Nigerian Air Force, 2 combat pilots were winged on the 4th of July 2017 after successfully completing an 18-month specialized undergraduate pilot training in USA. Six pilots were winged at the 53rd Nigerian Air Force Day celebration in Makurdi. 4 instructor pilots graduated at the 403 Flying School in Kano. 2 pilots were trained on the Alpha Jet aircraft in Jordan. Furthermore, 5 pilots are presently undergoing flying training in South Africa. Among them are 2 females. 3 pilots were trained in Egypt on the Alpha Jet. On the Mi-35M helicopter, pilots and technicians were trained in Russia. ICT training was conducted for Nigerian Air Force officers in USA.
That's a huge number. Honestly, the Chief of Air Staff has invested a lot on training.
The serviceability of an aircraft is completely dependent on the effectiveness of the engineers and technicians to apply accurate know-how on replacement and repair of components when provided. Therefore, the level of downtime is due to accessibility and availability of such manpower. To this end, the current leadership of the Nigerian Air Force has taken major steps in the area of training and retraining engineers and technicians home and abroad to majorly domesticate its maintenance, both basic and major services. The result of foreign and local engineering training of Nigerian Air Force personnel is evident in the serviceability status of Nigerian Air Force fleets of aircraft.
There was this particular case which I find interesting, being an aircraft engineer, and particularly I'm typewritten on the Alpha Jet engine. And I know how much ordinarily it costs to reactivate an engine. So we've had several engines on the ground, but one of the things the Chief of the Air Staff was able to do was to organize a training for some of our engine technicians on the Alpha Jet in Canada, just a 10-day training. Believe me, the result has been wonderful. They've been able to reactivate several engines which ordinarily would have cost us millions of dollars in total if we had to outsource them.
Before now, the engines were shipped out for overhaul. Just for a minor snag, it's going to be shipped out for overhaul. Sometimes it takes 3 months just to ship it out. And with the maintenance activities or the overhaul, it takes another 3 months, sometimes up to 6 months before the engine is being returned back. And that equally affects the operation and the maintenance responsibility of the wing. So with the dogged leadership of the Chief of Air Staff, a 3-man team was trained in Canada for 10 days, and which I happen to be the leader. Before that training, actually we have 13 of these engines. But as you likely see now, we have just 6, means we have worked on 7 out of it. Once we finish, we test it on the test bench. We have a test bench here, a very serviceable test bench, and we check the parameters. If they are within the limits, that is when we turn to this engine to be serviceable, and which is going to be released for an hour. There is an hour released for. For this engine, it was snagged for limit life attended for module 8 and vibration. For now, module 8, which is this, that means this module is already unserviceable, so we are going to remove this module and work on the vibration level. So once we get a serviceable module 8 and work on the vibration, which has to do with the bearings, we change the bearings. It has 5 bearings. We are going to change the bearings and change the module 8. That's when after that we now check it on the test bench. Once it meets all the required standards and operational limits, we release this engine for operation. These are the modules of engine recently procured by the Nigerian Air Force. Actually, they came in modules. There are like 24 different containers. And with the training we received from Canada, we were able to assemble each individual modules here to give 2 perfect engines. And those engines were assembled, tested on the test bench, found satisfactory, all performance within limits, and they are presently mounted on an aircraft now 461.
In line with the administration of the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, to boost human capacity efficiency of Nigerian Air Force engineers and technicians, AFIT has received support in infrastructure to support its expansion to cater for more entrants and introduction of new courses aimed at equipping the Nigerian Air Force engineers and technicians with the knowledge to serve the maintenance needs of the service.
But many courses have been introduced since the present Chief of Air Staff took office. And these courses were mainly so as to clear the backlog of untrained personnel within the service and also provide specialist training in some specific areas in the service. For example, all our engineering and other logistics trades, we have introduced the basic airmen courses. We have the basic airmen aircraft maintenance course, basic supply course, basic EE course. These courses were meant to clear the backlog of so many of our personnel who are, though allocated the trades, the respective trades after their military training, but were not given the initial training required so that they can function as airmen within their trades. In addition, we have some specialized courses that have been introduced. Notable among them is the Engineering Control Office course. Initially, the course was started in the 431 Engineering Group, but later on, AFIT took over to conduct the course. We recently graduated a set of students, 20 students participated in that course. Another course that was recently introduced was the Technical Supply course. The first course was conducted this year, and the students have successfully graduated. We are already, approval has been given for the conduct of machinist course, so as to improve technical manpower when it comes to production. Already a group, 20 airmen have been nominated for that course, and we'll start the course when we resume the next session on 25th of September. There is no Air Force base you go.
you will not see a lot of new infrastructures. Coming into this base, if you know how the base was before the chief took over, and after spending 2 years on this position, you can see the great changes infrastructurally that have taken place within the base. If you are coming from the secondary school, go through the cadet quarters, go through the airmen quarters. So coming into AFID 2, we have had a lot of infrastructure development. Notable among this one is the 1,000 sitting capacity auditorium that was constructed for AFID. Hitherto, AFID used to conduct its convocation in the Olusei Petroleum Hall, close to the officers' mess. But for the first time this year, we conducted our convocation within AFID in that hall.
Beyond the air and aircraft maintenance, the Nigerian Air Force has ground personnel in active combat form to protect and secure the Nigerian Air Force air assets, base protection, and key national assets from emerging threats. A significant effort towards capacity building in this area was to restructure and expand the Ground Training Center into a command, giving birth to Regiment Training Center and Military Training Center respectively, with the ability to cater for more intakes and cover more specialized training models. The current leadership of the Nigerian Air Force has repositioned and restructured the Regiment Training Center to make it more effective and efficient in training personnel to meet the ever-changing complexities of military operations. The Regiment Training Center, RTC, recently got support with the provision of an electronic shooting range, instructors' accommodation, and other provision.
If you take a conventional range that is established maybe on the ground, you discover that you have to spend a lot of money on the ammunition you use, the range facilities itself, because from time to time they are getting damaged, and above all, the risk of sustaining injuries by whatever mistake from any of the trainees is completely removed. A typical electronic range is highly flexible. You create scenarios that you want and you set it up. You can easily create things like moving targets, stationary targets, and it does not in any way destroy the range. So the cost is reduced, it is flexible for use, and requires very minimal maintenance.
So firstly, our teams. In each flight, there will be 5 teams.
It has become imperative to employ new ways to tackle new security threats. Therefore, the current leadership has embarked on special force training of its personnel. One of such training was inaugurated by the AOC of Ground Training Command on the 29th of July 2017.
Nigeria at the moment is having a new form of challenge, which is asymmetric warfare. And we have always been trained to fight the conventional warfare. So there was a need then to start to train our personnel to fight asymmetric warfare. So in this regard, the Nigerian Air Force, under the leadership of Air Marshal Abubakar, has also contacted necessary organizations. We have had the British Military Assistant Training Team in Nigeria, who have provided this specialized training to our personnel. And we've also had a company from Israel who are also providing special forces training to our personnel.
The Military Training Center, MTC, is the first step of recruit into the Nigerian Air Force, where basic military training is conducted to cater to personnel needs of the force. And the current leadership is determined to bridge the manpower gap in regiment personnel in the service.
And we've had in the past technicians and others, admin personnel, being used as basically to fight as regiment personnel. And of course, this was never the best. So what the Nigerian Air Force has done in the past 2 years is to recruit much more than ever before. We have had a lot of personnel being recruited specifically for the regiment specialty. They have been given enhanced training to provide security so that the technicians and others can focus on their core areas.
Due to the increased number of recruits intake in the last 2 years, to address this challenge, the facilities at the Military Training Center were upgraded and expanded.
The Chief of Air Staff has recently constructed 5 new blocks of accommodation that with capacity of 350 recruits each. That means we now have the capacity to train over 2,000 recruits at a time. And these facilities are well built, all the necessary facilities, 3 industrial boreholes with a standby generator, with all the facilities that you can find anywhere in the world. The parade ground, as you know, is the first point where the new intakes are taken to enhance their drill, their personal bearing, and regimentation. So in order to accommodate the large number of intakes that we have, the Chief also expanded the parade ground to accommodate the 2,000 recruits that will be trained. And I'm so proud that the parade ground has been used to train successfully 2 large numbers of intakes of 2,000 each. As at last count, the last personnel that we just did, 21st of July 2017, that brings the total number of recruits that has been trained under the present administration between September 2015 to date to 4,163 that have successfully graduated from the Military Training Center. This is apart from the 331 recruits that the Nigerian Air Force trained for EFCC. So in total, we have trained over 4,400 plus for both Nigerian Air Force and EFCC. The first in the history of Nigerian Air Force. Very phenomenal in 2 years. Let me remind you that before this time, the maximum capacity that has been trained here was just 500. Now we have the capacity to train over 2,500 at a time. And with the assistance of the Chief of Air Staff, the center has 5 new troop carrying vehicles and a luxurious bus, which makes movement of troops to a size area very convenient. With this large number, the Chief also built a 1,000 capacity hall for lecture. So that hall is being used as a lecture hall for recruits, in addition to other facilities, which we also use it as a center to hold dubbers with our airmen and also to hold, to do graduation. The Chief of Air Staff has also built living quarters for officers and instructors who are coming into the center to teach the recruits. In this regard, we have 1 block of 20 units for officers and 30 units of studio room for the airmen. And all these quarters are equipped with generators and boreholes.
To meet up with the high demand of personnel uniforms, especially of the new recruits, Nigerian Air Force has established its own tailoring center in Kaduna with trained personnel. The center is large enough to cater for this need. In the quest to secure the Nigerian Air Force bases, air assets and other security supports, the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, is leaving nothing to chance. He has introduced into the Nigerian Air Force the K9 sniffer dogs for precision, and personnel have since been trained to man this unit effectively, and more are currently undergoing training.
This is one of the laudable projects of the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar. Behind me, what you see is the dog kennels. We have the handlers accommodation and the administrative building, as well as the training area. Presently, the Nigerian Air Force has 20 dogs, amongst which we have 11 explosive detection dogs. Others are narcotics and patrol dogs. Between the period of August to November 2016, we had a 3 months training, basic training for dog handlers in the Air Force. About 20 people were trained at that instance, and we trained on obedience level, we trained on patrol, we had a bit of patrol training, we trained on bite work, how to train dogs to bite and hold. We got all this training during the 3 months period we had with the Nigerian police in Abuja. Then we went on a 6 weeks training to South Africa, Brave Heart Biodog Academy in Rayton, Pretoria, where we trained on substance detection, to walk in between crowd, to walk in a crowded place like in the airport, supermarkets, to walk to secure lives and properties.
The effectiveness of the canine dogs to detect suspected substance cannot be overemphasized.
With the existing understanding between the Nigerian Air Force and the airport security management, we were able to record success with our narcotic dogs on our first deployment. We deployed our narcotic dogs to the international baggage area, and one of them gave a positive response on a luggage which was handed over to the NDLEA for further investigations.
My experience in canine dogs training has been an interesting one. Right from the day we went for our basic course in Nigeria, I have phobia for dogs. But as time goes on, when I started training dogs, it was really interesting. To the day we went for the advanced course in South Africa, it has been very interesting. I was trained on explosive detection dogs.
When the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, came on board, he came up with his vision, and which essentially was to reposition the Nigerian Air Force, for enhanced professionalism. And he realized that to do this, certainly personnel will have to be on top of their game with respect to their various professions. And one of the things he has always said is that a man cannot give what he does not have. So if we are going to have enhanced performance, if we are going to have professionalism, especially with the contemporary challenges that we're facing, then everybody has to be well trained to do what is expected to do. And so one of the key drivers of his vision was actually that of human capacity building, and through robust and result-oriented training. And of course, in that respect, he realized that we will not have to just be a training that is one-sided. It has to be all-encompassing. And indeed, what has been done is that we have seen training beyond whatever was done before, down to all trades, towards the reactivation of aircraft where necessary, purchase of new platforms where necessary. And of course, when we talk about training of pilots, a lot of logistics requirements go into it, training and co.
When it concerns operating within the country, this is not conventional. Most of what we do is not conventional. You need to be careful. And it's only well-trained individuals that will be able to accomplish these special kinds of missions. We have been able to develop specialized capacities, especially in terms of operations. We're able to conduct night operations now. We're able to conduct ISR and integrate with ground attack. As a veteran of ECOMOG, this was not what was there. We simply just went for the attack, air interdiction, and another airplane goes for battle damage assessment. But now it is integrated, and which means everybody, the ISR crew, the fighter crew, all have to be trained to be able to operate in the same environment, because it's complex. Operating within the same airspace, operating to integrate the activities together. So that is the need for capacity building. Also, there's an expansion in the types of airplanes that we have. You have to have build capacity to be able to maintain all of these airplanes so that they'll be available at all times as you require them. And generally, I think the activities of the Air Force has picked up in such a way that you find that seamless activities are going on at the same time without any hindrance that we used to have before, because people have more capacity to do accomplish several tasks.
The vision and key drivers of the Chief of the Air Staff is clear, but it is not easy to achieve this capacity in such a short time.
Everything we have achieved in the Nigerian Air Force in the last 2 years or thereabout, we've been able to achieve the tasks that we have set for ourselves because of, first and foremost, the enabling environment created by the present leadership, the federal government leadership. The environment has made it so easy for us to be able to pursue our aspirations and our objectives without any problems. Let me give you a typical example. In the past, we had a lot of difficulties in acquiring spare parts in certain countries. Although we still have some difficulties because of processes and procedures in some countries. But I can tell you that there are so many original equipment manufacturers and maintenance repair organizations that are today giving us spare parts even before we make payments, because they believe that the environment is transparent and that they believe also that with the kind of environment that is on ground, whatever they are sending to us, they will certainly get their resources. And that has reduced the downtime on aircraft. In some places, we've been given spare parts on AOG, aircraft on ground, without even making the payments for some of our critical platforms. And that is a very serious departure from what we used to have in the past, where people are not too sure sometimes whether if they send parts, the resources will be remitted. I must, in this regard, also appreciate the contributions of the Federal Minister of Defense, the Federal Minister of Finance, the Accountant General of the Federation, and indeed the Central Bank Governor, who have all assisted in ensuring that, knowing fully well that the Air Force is highly technical, a highly technical service that requires inputs from original equipment manufacturers and maintenance repair organizations, have taken steps in ensuring that remittances are made to these companies where these spares are produced. It is equally very important to stress that the National Assembly, through the Air Force Committee at the House of Reps, and then Air Force Committee in the Senate, and indeed the entire National Assembly, have actually played a very crucial role in ensuring that resources are appropriated for the Nigerian Air Force. They have showed a lot of understanding on what air power can do and the limitations that we are going to go through if we do not have what is required in terms of resources to make sure that we acquire all the equipment and spares that will keep our airplanes flying. So the National Assembly equally has played a very, very important role in ensuring that we succeed. Of course, we shouldn't also forget the officers and men of the Nigerian Air Force, who are the ones that are actually involved in translating all these efforts into reality. I think every officer, every airman, airwoman have contributed significantly. We have seen a lot of commitment, a lot of patriotism on the part of our pilots, who spend so many hours overhead Zambiza Forest, who spend many hours diving and trying to locate where the enemy is in order to ensure that Nigeria is safe. They equally have played a very, very crucial role. So in a nutshell, what I would say is that whatever we've been able to achieve in the last 2 years is because of the kind of support we received from the federal government and also the enabling environment that the government has created.
With this determination by the leadership of the Nigerian Air Force, the days ahead hold a lot of promise.